Today, we're going to be talking about leaders in the arena, how to evolve in a global and diverse environment. We will learn the main characteristics of a great leader, challenges and opportunities for leaders working in global settings, and your energy is a universal language. Today, our expert is Belinda M.J. Brown. I invited Belinda today because of her work with executives and leadership coaching and her background as a leader working in European and American multinational organizations. Belinda is the CEO and executive coach of Equanimity Executive. She assists women, female leaders, and international executives to enhance their performance in a wide range of areas, including leadership, communication skills, and organizational cultural transformation. She also consults with companies in the areas of organizational transformation, talent development, and diversity management. With that, let me introduce you to Belinda M.J. Brown. Thank you so much for being here today, Belinda. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, Estelle. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me, because I think that this summit will be a real success and give a lot of opportunities to leaders or potential leaders out there to understand a little bit better how they can become those great leaders that they want to be.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay, well, one thing, Belinda, let's go ahead and dive in.
Yes, definitely. So for me, a great leader, and for the people that I have been working with for the past 5 years, define a great leader as an individual that it's really inspiring, that is focused on the greater good of others, not only their employees, but also their clients, their customers, shareholders, stakeholders, and also the greater good of the organization that they are in charge of. So mainly what great leaders are and differs from good leaders are the leaders that are able to have specific characteristics to engage and inspire people to follow their lead instead of to have to push them to accomplish the task or the objectives that they are required to accomplish in their work.
Yeah, that's a great definition. I love asking that question because everyone has a little different perspective, but at the same time, a great leader is the same across the globe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree.
So since we're talking about global, it seems many companies these days are going global or national, or at least becoming more diverse in their work group. Do you think it takes a different skill set for leaders in global and diverse environments versus one that is more domestic and less diverse?
No, I think that actually they have really common traits. The only thing that makes maybe the difference it's a little bit lot more challenging when you are going abroad, because you are coming with a different cultural background, and every culture has their sets of values. Values are also defined differently, so it's just about being curious. If you are an inspiring leader, a great leader, you will definitely focus on being authentic and being curious about the team that you are leading, but also about the culture you are diving in, and curious about how things are done differently. Curiosity is certainly one of the main traits of great leaders. They are there to learn as much as they are able to teach and lead people. And what we have been seeing now on the global scene, it's the leaders that have been successful working abroad or working in multicultural teams are actually leaders that are able to just listen and being curious about what is happening, asking the right question from a genuine interest and not from a place of judgment. 20 or 30 years ago, when leaders were hired, they were hired for the hard skills that they have and their way of directing people. Today, it's coming more from a place of inspiring and engaging people and making sure that they buy into the culture that you are creating, either in your department, either in your organization as a whole, or either as a multinational level in an organization. So this is actually what I have found really interesting when I'm working with the leaders that I'm assisting in my role every single day as an executive coach and women success expert, is that the traits are the same whether you are a domestic leader or a global leader, and it's changing and shifting a little bit. So characteristics that are the most important for those leaders to become great leaders and not only be good ones. It's really about practicing authenticity. So being who they are, owning their own strengths, understanding what are their blind spots, which means that they are really self-aware and have the ability to receive feedback from anybody within an organization without being defensive about it, and they are actually looking to receive this feedback, which help them to grow even faster as great leaders. The other quality that I mentioned earlier, it's really about curiosity. Curiosity, it's about looking at things and how they are done differently in another country, for example, or by different people who have different cultural background, without any judgment, and asking, okay, if they have been doing this for so long, there is certainly a reason. What is behind it? How can this apply to our own culture or the culture that we are trying to shape globally? And when you see, for example, big American corporation wanting to go to Asia or wanting to go to Africa or Middle East, the ones that are being successful are the ones that are able to be curious and to understand what has been happening before they came, understanding how people are working, what are their values, and how they define and actually exhibit those values. I had, a few years ago, a conversation with leaders of an organization, and they were talking about the fact that their values were integrity. And when they were talking about integrity, they define it in a way that it's really common in our Western culture. Mm-hmm. And when they went in Africa, integrity was meaning something different. People were coming and saying, yeah, I have a high level of integrity. But the thing is, bribery, for example, was something that was really common in their country. And the American company and the leaders were finding that the people actually had a lack of integrity based on their own standards. And when finally they understood that values can be defined differently, and they were able to find a common language and to reassess what the value was for everybody within the organization, whether you were in Africa or whether you were in the United States, they were able to understand each other and to work at the same level. If the leaders were not at the time curious about understanding what was the value and how the value was expressed in this country of Africa, they would have lost an opportunity to expand and to collaborate in a meaningful way with the team that they have created over there. So it all comes through communications as well, and having a sense of empathy where you put yourself in the shoes of others instead of to judging. It's really about coming from a place, like I said earlier, curiosity and being empathetic about what people are going through. It doesn't mean that you have to agree or condone what is done differently, but it's just acknowledging that what they have been doing has been doing great for them, but that today we can create another kind of culture and define things differently in a way that everybody in the team will comprehend it. So those are some of the main characteristics that I'm seeing being needed in a global organization, but that are more and more necessary even at home here in the United States when you are wanting to be a great leader and just being able to inspire people, be trusted, because trust is certainly one of the most important factor for a successful leader. If you are not trusted, if you are not able to listen, if you are not self-aware about your own strengths and your own limitation, you will not be trusted, and then you will not be able to lead and inspire teams to follow you and get the results that you want to see within your organization.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing you say, to sum everything up, is that for global leaders to be successful, authenticity is very important, being themselves, being curious, being aware, and open to feedback. Those were kind of the big things that stood out to me. And although those things will make global leaders successful, they are also very important for any leader to be a great leader.
No, definitely, because when we are talking about this, globalization that is happening, we have also to see that in our own organization at home, we have a lot of diversity happening. We have a lot of minorities in our countries. We have also women getting a lot more into the work place. And so the diversity is happening as well at home, and it brings new opportunity for creativity, for partnership, for collaboration, great communication. And this goes along with the traits that I just shared with you, because if you are curious about a woman entering the workforce or wanting to be in the C-suite and understanding where she's coming from, you will be able to be successful at creating a culture that will include her. Same thing with somebody coming from Latin America or Hispanic culture. If you are curious about how they operate and how they do things, I think that you will have also better success as a leader to inspire them and having them to feel engaged. So I think that what is happening at the global level, it's even becoming more relevant and helping us as well to reassess how leadership was defined inside of our country and within our borders. So I think that it's actually a wonderful thing. It's challenging because it means that a lot of people have to shift their mindset about what leadership is and how we want also to teach people to become great leaders, how we can also challenge them every day to revisit their definition of leadership and making sure that they don't cultivate or create damaging communication or mishap because they are not being curious or being trusted leaders able to really bring people together and inspire them.
Yes. Yes. So speaking of challenges, because you mentioned mindset already, what are some of the other challenges that you've experienced as a leader in a global organization that you've seen your clients experience as well?
So many times it all starts with communication. This is the diagnosis that we have when we are getting into organizations. They say we need to have training on communication because today things have been delayed. And miscommunication happens because people are going with their idea in mind instead of to try to understand where the other person is coming from. And because they are not on the same frequency, based on their cultural background, based on the fact that they are new leaders, they are millennials with baby boomers, for example. So miscommunication happens a lot. And we start a lot talking about this. And we realize, really quickly that the mindset needs to change. And when you are able to shift the mindset and help people to understand that there is other ways to approach a situation, to approach conflicts, to approach misunderstanding, and helping them to own their own responsibility in the relationship that they have with people, it helps tremendously to mitigate those risks of miscommunication, damaging behavior that today cost a lot of money to organization. If I recall well, I think that $3 billion per year spent or wasted by organizations due to miscommunication that are actually connected or related to the fact that people are not self-aware, that they make quick judgment and they are coming from their perspective and their point of view instead of to open their mind and the opportunity to listen to others' people's points of view.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, one of the hardest things to do is change mindset. And I'm not sure if there's any training for that, but I'm just curious to know, when you work with organizations, are there things that they can do to help shift a mindset?
Yeah, many things actually. First of all, we have to make them to acknowledge that the challenge might come from them and that they might be part of the solution. And this is certainly where it is the most challenging in America, like in many other country where we have a tendency to put the blame on others. This is part of who we are as human beings. If there is a challenge, there is a problem, and if there is a problem, somebody is involved, and if it means that it's us, it's not something that we want always to see. So creating awareness and acknowledgement about what is the situation and how each individual at any level within the organization, when I'm coaching a VP or CEO, or I'm working with a senior manager, I'm taking the same approach. What can you impact, or what can you do to influence the relationship that you have, or the challenge that you have, or the conflict that you have in a positive way? And I'm bringing this up during the coaching session, helping them just to understand that when they have acknowledged that there is a challenge, that they are part of the solution, they have already 50% of the problem resolved, and this helped tremendously. So we use most of the time self-assessment or 360 assessment to help them to realize what is happening. So it's really the phase where we identify exactly what the challenge is. Then it's also the opportunity when we have this assessment and that we have the acknowledgement and the buy-in that they have an opportunity to solve this issue once for all within the organization or within the team that they are leading. We have the ability as well to have this as a baseline and to set some coaching session around either in a group coaching or individual coaching session around what could be, common language that we could, use around this challenge, create a common language as well around the solution, and help them to design a plan that will work for them, for the organization, and bring enhancement to the communication, but also to their leadership style, to the soft skills that they can, develop as well to become more self-aware, more curious, more empathetic, develop also presence, because I think that many people in many organizations at a leadership level lack presence because they are too busy doing instead of being. Mm-hmm. And this is going back to being authentic and making sure that you are in a space where you are available to listen, available to look at what is happening and to respond instead of reacting.
Mm-hmm. I think what you just said right there, responding instead of reacting, is a big challenge that I've seen leaders face. Great. So what I hear you saying is that having a coach and taking some assessments to become more aware of yourself and even getting feedback from others can really help you shift your mindset and be more aware. What about communication? What are some ways that companies and leaders can overcome that challenge?
So the challenge with communication in global teams, it's a little bit, different, and we can add something to it, specifically related to just, created a culture of curiosity, like I said earlier. So it's really helping people to understand that coming from different culture within, for example, the United States, we have, different, countries, we have different, ways of operating. And I take, a lot, my example, I am French. I was born and raised in France and moved to the United States in 2007. So it was 9 years ago. And when I moved here, even if I had the opportunity to visit this country for many years, coming here for months, I never, realized that time had a different, perception for me and for people that were living in the US, for example, or that hierarchy was defined, differently as well. So based on different culture, you have also standards that have been adopted by the people living in different, countries or region of the world. And just, being aware that because we have been doing things one way and that other people are doing things another way doesn't mean that anybody is wrong. It's just that two things are done, differently. Mm-hmm. For example, I had a vice president that I was working with, and I started to email him, and really detailed, because in France we are what we call a high context culture, where we need to have the entire context to make decision, where details are as important as the content. So I started, to write my emails and having, details about how we will, do it, what would be the risk, how we could, overcome the risk, and having, really long emails, because this is how I was taught to communicate properly in France. And each time I was receiving a really short email from my vice president, who just was saying, okay, Or what about this? Without a hi, without a bye, without thank you. And I felt, frustrated for about 6 months before realizing that actually it is not because he didn't like me. It's just because we are doing things differently in a low context culture where everything needs to be bullet points. We don't need to know exactly all the details. We just, need to know the main points. And based on this, we will make the decision. And if something happened later on, we will figure it out. So it's a total different, mindset. And you have this different mindset for many, many, many topics. So 2 authors that I would, recommend are, Philip Rosinski and Maureen Rabotin. They both wrote about framework, cultural, framework that we are experiencing from different parts of the world. And it's really interesting to see that hierarchy is defined differently. I am coming from a hierarchical culture in France where we say Mr. or Mrs. and last name, where here you go directly to say the first name after the first time that you meet people. There is also a way here, for example, to include everybody. Even an intern can have a say at a table at a leadership meeting, where in France it's not, there is a protocol and there is a way, and most of the time the hierarchy makes you keep one place within the organization and not, voice your opinion that much because there is layers. Right. And when you start to have the understanding that it's just different, there is no judgment anymore from my part, that is just different, and that people are doing things not to annoy you, because I realized that I was annoying a lot of people with my long emails, and people felt that I was not confident enough to put just the bullet points. And you have the conversation about what the different culture can bring as value. You just, understand better, and you have better communication instead of to have frustration, instead of to feel that it's personal. Creating, just, conversation within, teams when you have a staff meeting for 10 minutes about how do you perceive time, what would you expect from a leader. And when you talk to Indians, they don't expect the same thing from a leader than an American or than somebody from China. And when you open those conversations, people are just seeing things differently and not judging anymore. They are becoming appreciative of the differences. So for communication, I will really encourage people to bring those books into their staff meeting and just have a conversation and start to open up to the fact that people are doing things differently, not good or bad. They have pros and they have cons based on the culture that we are living in, but it gives the opportunity to just not have the defensiveness and the judgment anymore.
Yes,
part of the process.
Yes. Thank you for sharing those stories, Belinda. I think it really puts it in a good context to know some examples of things that you've experienced and what other people experience too, and seeing both sides of it. And I think when a leader lets go of that judgment, then they can really see both sides of the spectrum.
You become appreciative.
Right.
This is really what it is. Instead of to see differences as a challenge for your team, you just, say, okay, we have, some people that are really good at high context. They might, take care of a project on risk management and use, the tools and use details instead of to having them to always adjust to your way of doing things. You might, also see the benefits and give them, credits for the way that they are operating and functioning. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Belinda. So I'm very curious about energy as a universal language. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So the thing that a lot of leaders can do if they don't have any clue about how to approach different, culture, it's really reading, the energy in the room. And we all know how energy works. So basically, when you enter in a room, sometimes you have some response or reaction. And when you are able to assess this energy, you know if you are on the right path or not. And based on the energy that you bring as well in a room, and you have to think about that as a leader as well, because it impacts tremendously the teams and actually the result that you will get, you will be able to become a great leader. So, for example, when you are, entering, in a meeting with a multicultural team, already, thinking that it will be a challenge for you because you have different people from different perspective, different, background. This energy will show and will, ripple within the entire team, whether you want it or not. And the energy will just, be there. So what it's really important for you, it's getting into the meeting with this energy of openness and energy of receiving what will be said during the meeting. And even if you have an agenda, just look at how people are energetically evolving, and you will see that some people will become agitated, and you will see the energy maybe become a little bit more draining. And when it does happen, try to shift this energy by asking an open-ended question to clarify. Be curious and genuinely curious, and bring more authenticity as well, and help people to identify what they are bringing in the room during a meeting. Because this has been something that I have experienced myself as a coach when I am entering, and you know that as well, Estelle, since you are dealing with the same type of client. When you are entering the room with your own energy, something is happening. And as coaches, we know that we have to clear our energy and to bring a positive energy into any meeting, and that it will ultimately set the tone for the communication that we will have with people, the message that we will want to deliver. And the more you are able to manage your own energy, the better you will be able to have the result that you are looking for. Even if it's a tense meeting, even if it's a meeting where you have to make announcement of layoff, bring the energy that you would like to receive if you were in this kind of situation. And this can really help you, even if you have no clue about what's going on. And from a cultural standpoint, it will really help you to see if people are shutting down or opening up. And based on this, you can actually articulate your message and ask the right question. And you will, become curious, because when you stop to notice the energy in a room and you assess your own energy, you will become actually an expert assessing a room and see how you can help to shift the energy in the room to be in a point where people will be willing to receive. And this energy is what we call anabolic energy, the energy that will help you to engage and create partnership, and an energy that it's really caring about the people that you are talking to. And this will ripple, and we can, entrain an entire team or an entire organization into this kind of energy. I'm pretty sure that you have experienced, this sometimes with some leaders when they are speaking on stage. You can, see what kind of energy they are bringing, and you see if people are sleeping, if you see if people are getting upset, if people are getting agitated. It's because of the energy that they are bringing in the room. And I think that along of the other, traits and qualities that we talked about earlier, somebody that has a high level of energy, so constructive, positive, collaborative energy, will be a greater leader than somebody that is coming with what we call a catabolic energy, this energy that will be a draining one, that will shut people down, and that will really focus only on problems instead of to focus on opportunities. So I hope that it makes sense.
Oh, yes. Thank you for bringing that to our awareness. I understand energy, and it's like you said, you can feel energy in a room, and you can sense a speaker or a leader is great. When you describe them, you're going to say that they're positive and energetic, but we don't usually think of it as it being a universal language, and it is. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it, but we don't ever talk about it. So thanks for bringing that to our awareness. Before we get into the free gift, is there anything else that you want to make sure that you tell the listeners today?
No, I think that it was, really interesting to be able to bring up some of those topics related to things that are maybe not usually talked about when we are talking about leadership. I know that I am involved in coaching because I really want to be able to help people to transform their organization, so it can ripple to our communities and also our nations, and some hopefully one day on the world. So the more we can, bring those qualities into leaders, new leaders and leaders that have been already in place for many years, we'll, have a better, place to work, a more engaging place to work. We will attract more talents as well, because when you think about the workplace today, this is an environment where we spend a lot of time, and people want to make sure that today they are surrounded by what I talked about earlier, an energy that will help them to feel valued, help them, to be more collaborative, and leave also the workplace not with problems to bring back home, but also with opportunities to connect with the community, connect, with their family at a deeper level. And I think that bringing, all those qualities and helping leaders to understand that just by being themselves and focusing on skills that are not complicated to develop, they just need to be uncovered. It will definitely help not only our organization, but like I say, certainly our communities and the world to be a better, place. So
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is certainly an interesting topic, and I feel like we could talk about it for hours, because there's so much that goes into it. Even though it's like you said, these are things that can be easily changed if you are aware and you put some focus on it. And especially having a coach can really help you focus and use some tools to become more aware. So thank you so much, Belinda, for being here today, sharing your experiences and your advice and wisdom. You have a lot of great messages, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Estelle. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for listening too. Have a great day.